Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Eliminator, where we're giving this the budget game review treatment, which we do for smaller or cheaper games so they get this shorter review to match. The game was developed and published by Hewson and released in 1988. I have this box copy that is very much not in that cheap category for the Amiga. On top of that, I also have the budget release that I got with our Amiga 500 Plus. Now this box copy is very nice, as inside we find this wonderful poster that's a blueprint of the craft. How good does that look? Now I don't have the manual, but the controls are easy enough. The game kicks off with this great bit of music for the combination credits and title sequence. Then transitions to the main menu where we have a few options, though they are mostly hidden behind keyboard keys. And those are mostly on the F keys, that can turn music and sound effects on and off, or enable a 60Hz mode. And if you have a password, you can enter it by hitting the help key. There's no text box for you to actually type it in, it will just accept it if you do. But let's get into the meat of the game itself, and check out what the back of the box describes as coming from the underground, a machine encircled by death, that kills but cannot be killed, the Eliminator. And once in game we find what effectively looks like a racing game, but it's really a shoot 'em up racing game. As you hover over the ground having to take out these weird and wonderful aliens, all while avoiding the barriers along the way. Now you have no control over your speed, so it does feel like one of those auto-scroller shooters. It's just one that happens to move into the screen. And from the start you'll have to be on your toes, as those monsters will come flying at you very quickly and will attack you as well. Thankfully they do go down relatively fast from your gun, but don't think you can keep blasting all the time, as you do have limited ammo. And on top of that, your gun fires pretty slowly as well. This information is actually provided to you on the HUD that you can see on the right hand side of the screen. And from the top to the bottom we have your ammo count, how much shields you've got left, as well as the number of lives you have, which you'll also get a new one for every 10,000 points. Your shields will be depleted when you get hit by an enemy's firepower, but colliding with an enemy or a wall is an instant death. Your shield does recharge, but I've never quite worked out if it's over time or if it's just at set points along the track. So I wouldn't rely on it too much, so just keep weaving around and trying to avoid those spheres of death. The second level introduces its other gimmick in the game, the ceiling. And you get there with the launch pad, the latter of which will allow the Eliminator to travel to and from the ceiling. And if there's not one there, then it'll just launch you into the air, which you do have some control over. On later levels you will need to try and plot out your course, as you might have to switch between the top and the bottom to avoid solid walls, or particularly difficult patterns of baddies. But thankfully you don't have to rely on that basic gun, as you have 6 in total, which you'll get if you collect one of those 2 different pickups that you can see. The blue pyramids will give you access to the next weapon upgrade, and the orange cubes will give you more ammo. Once you have that icon on the left hand side of the HUD, you can then change your current weapon by pushing up or down on the joystick. That's right, you get to choose what gun you think is best in the moment, if you happen to have it unlocked obviously. Now these guns range from the dual shot, which are very useful for taking out those barriers, as they are double spaced and the collision detection will take you out if it thinks you're a single pixel into a barrier. You then get the wide attack, which is great for hitting those critters that are near the sides of the screen, and then you get the bouncing bombs, which can be very tricky to use but are good at trying to take out those flying baddies. And then finally you have the double and triple fire cannons. Now these really will eat up your ammo, but are great at clearing out lots of enemies at once. Even if you have the weapon that you want, which is typically that dual or wide attack, having the others unlocked is useful, as when you die, you will not only lose a life, but also the most advanced weapon in your current selection. There are 14 levels in total, so as you might expect, the difficulty really ramps up, and on those later levels you don't even have the full road to maneuver with. As for a lack of a better word, these rivers run inside the track. Move too much into it and, well, you've guessed it, you've lost a life. Which is a bit weird, as ground effect vehicles tended to work quite well over water. The launcher becomes quite important on these levels, as you have to fly around between the various tracks to avoid the obstacles, and it all gets quite hectic, as you have to weave between the walls, take out those barriers, all while flying creatures come zooming in. All of which is trying to distract you against what's coming up ahead, which is typically either a wall you never spotted or an enemy that's just decided it's going to stop right there. And while all this is going on, you're just hoping that that level finish is coming up, which either is this huge set of doors, or you flying down to a planet if it's a space level. There is rarely a quiet moment in this game, so keeping track of what weapon you have selected and how much ammo you have is key. It's not a game I've really ever been good at, but I do enjoy coming back to it every so often, as there really isn't many other games like this, even though there's probably a very good reason for that. Unfortunately, this game never really sold all that well. The reviews seem to be middling, and I get the feeling that a lot of it was down to the difficulty level, because more often than not, what I get to see is that explosion as the Eliminator gets blown up. Kill but cannot be killed? Bah, that box blurb lied to me. The game originated on the Atari ST, and it looks pretty much the same as the Amiga version, with it having some pretty decent sounding music, and it and the Amiga were the only 16-bit versions of the game. But it did get a number of ports to the 8-bits. This includes the ZX Spectrum, with a very similar version coming out for the CPC, but the C64 got quite the port. It's not a patch on the 16 bits, but it is very impressive. Now, there's no real rhyme or reason for your flying death machine, as, well, there's no end boss for you to fight, and if you manage to finish the game, well, you just end up with this image and some text that's basically telling you you're just about to start the game again. Lucky you! So if anything, based on the description on the back of the box, we might actually be the real baddie. A war machine whose solitary quest is to eradicate all forms of life, travelling from planet to planet, obliterating all in its path. Eliminator, the ultimate in firepower. That really doesn't make it sound like we're doing good here, does it? And well, on that bombshell, I've been the Goldfish. That was supposedly the ultimate in firepower, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thank you for watching this budget game review. I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you've got memories of this game, good or bad, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments. And if you really enjoyed the video, then there's buttons below that you know what to do with. Or if you're not sure yet, then there's 2 other videos on screen that you can check out right now.